Hi, if you're in the market for a cooker hood, or an extractor hood as some people call it, like this, and you're not really sure what to go for, then you're not on your own because there are a huge range to choose from and they can be really confusing. So what I've done is I've come up with 10 things to consider before buying a cooker hood. Just before we start, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just give us a quick thumbs up. What I do is I talk about household appliances, do specialise in vacuum cleaners, and there's normally a bit of tech in there as well. Now, although this list is in no particular order, this first one I would say is probably the most important one, and that's the location and the type of hood that you want to go for. When I say the location of it, clearly it's going to be above your hob, but what I mean by location is where it's going to sit within the kitchen. Is it going to be in the middle of an island? So if you've got a centre island with a hob in it, is it going to sit there? Do you want it in the ceiling? There are a huge range of hoods, and what I've done is I know it's a little bit crude, but I've got the Neff brochure and I'm just going to run through some of the different options with you because it gives you a really good insight as to what's available. So the first type of hood is called the integrated hood. This is really where it would sit between two cabinets. So if you want to hide it, then this could be the one to go for, and all you do is you put your furniture door across the front there. And so you don't see a lot of the hood apart from the underside. The next type are called canopy hoods, and these are really good type of hoods if you wanted to conceal it and if you didn't want to see it apart from the underside. With these, I suppose the idea is that you would have a kitchen front across, so you'd have a kitchen door across the front of it, and then you'd have a couple of cupboards either side. So really, essentially, apart from the underside of the hood, you wouldn't see it, which for some people is an ideal solution. The next type are telescopic hoods. The idea of these is that they will just pull out. So similar to the first type of hoods where they are fairly concealed, these are just designed to go under a unit, and then when you want to use it, then you just pull it out. The next type are the traditional pyramid chimney hoods. This kind of design has been around for a long time. I'd say a lot of people tend to shy away from this type of design, especially if you're looking at doing your kitchen. Then this kind of cooker hood, or the pyramid chimney hood, I suppose personally I think it looks a little bit dated now, but people do still go for these. Then the next design are the box chimney hoods. So essentially they're very similar to the pyramid style, but it's just in the shape of a box. Personally I quite like the designs of these, but I suppose something to note is that they can be a little bit of a dust gatherer on top, so you just need to bear that in mind. The next type are the glass chimney hoods. So these are again similar to the box ones, but you've got glass on either side. I suppose cleaning of it has to be taken into account. Clearly with glass, then you want to make sure that that's kept nice and clean, because if you're cooking and if you've got any splatters above it, then you want to make sure that you keep it nice and clean to make it look smart. And then from there, we go into some of the more interesting designs. So these are the wall installation hoods. Now I know some of you are going, well, a lot of them are installed against the wall anyway, but with these ones they're a lot slimmer, so front to back you don't have the same depth as a normal cooker hood, so that's something to have a look at. I quite like the designs of some of these. Then you've got some more, because Neff do a really good range of wall installation hoods. Then you've got island hoods. Now as I mentioned earlier, as far as the location, then this is why it's really important, because with an island hood it will look smart from any side. Clearly when you're going to wall mount it, then the back of it doesn't look very pretty, but with an island hood then it's completely different design, and I know you probably can't see it, but they are suspended in a completely different way. It doesn't necessarily have to be some of the fancy designs. You have got some more of the traditional designs, like the box chimney hoods and some of the glass ones as well. And then from the island hood, the next ones are the ceiling installation hoods. These are very, very good if you wanted to, again, conceal it, but you're not really concealing it a huge amount because it's stuck in the ceiling. But these are very, very good. These are almost like a more advanced version of the island hood, because rather than having the hood sat in the middle of the room, then it's concealed within the ceiling. This type of hood we actually do pretty well with. Especially if you're refurbishing your kitchen and you've got the option to conceal it within the ceiling while you're doing your refurbishments. And then the next type are some of the worktop installation hoods. And with these are called downdraft hoods. This design and this concept has been around for several years now, It's a range of hoods that we seem to do okay with. The idea is that wherever you've got your hob located, you would have your hood just behind it. Now these can be really useful because first of all, it can provide a splashback as well. So whenever you're cooking, if you get any splashes against the back of the hood, then it's easy to wipe off and clean. But what it will also do is it will actually go back down into within the worktop once you've finished. Now I suppose that concept is really good. Again, if you want a minimalist look, if it is within a centre island, then that could be a very good option. The main thing to consider before going for this type of hood is that clearly you will lose space in the cupboard underneath it. So that's really something to think about. And then one of the final types of cooker hoods are called venting hobs. And basically what these are a certain type of cooker hob, and you actually have the venting that will go down within the centre of the hob. Now that kind of design is pretty good. I think the extraction on them are okay. Personally I've seen both in action and it does work, but personally I would always say if you have got the space and if you really want a good performance from your cooker hood, then I would always recommend going for a separate unit as opposed to going for a venting one. Now I know number one was quite a long one, but I just wanted to try and cover some of the basic types of cooker hoods because, as I say, there are so many on the market. Now that we're done with number one and you've chosen the type of design that you want, number two on the list is the size of it. A little bit more simple, this one. So essentially this would normally come down to the size of the hob that you've got. So if you've got a 60 centimetre hob, then you want to go for a 60 centimetre hood or slightly wider. What you don't want to do is to have, say, a 70 centimetre hob and then have a 60 centimetre hood, because what you'll find is that the extraction won't be as good and it won't be as effective. What you also need to bear in mind is something called the hot zone. I'm not going to talk a huge amount about this because I have done a separate video on it, but the hot zone is an area behind the hob, and it's just making sure that you've got no plug sockets or anything behind it. Make sure it's at least a tiled wall behind the hob. But what you need to do is you need to make sure that the hood is located at a certain height as well. That's normally down to the manufacturer's instructions, but it does vary, normally between 70-75 centimetres, so that's something else to look at. Number three on the list is sort of two parts into one, and first of all it's the extraction speeds and it's the extraction rate of the cooker hood. Now the extraction speeds are just how many speeds you've got on it. Now depending on the type of cooker hood, you'll find that the controls are either on the front or on the underside. On most cooker hoods you've got at least a low and a high setting. If you have got other settings in between, so ideally you want 3 or 4 settings, because you will find that sometimes just a low and a high heat, or a low setting, not a heat setting, a low and a high setting, put my teeth back in, are not enough. So I'd always recommend having a look for ones that have got at least 3 or 4 settings. The second part of this one is the extraction rate. Now this is the amount of air that the cooker hood can extract in a certain time. Now this gets a little bit confusing. So to work out the volume of the kitchen, then I would need to work out the height of the kitchen. So to work out the volume of the kitchen, first of all we need to know the height, the width and the length of it. And then once you've got those three, then you've got a much better idea as to the extraction rate required. Now, for example, if a standard kitchen could be, say, 2.5 meters high, that tends to be around the average height. And for example, if I've got a 4 meter by 3 meter kitchen, then the volume of the kitchen is 30 meters cubed. And then from there, then different manufacturers and I suppose different kitchen installers will give you different rates from this. But I suppose what some manufacturers will say is you need to look at a figure of between 6 and 12 times depending on what kind of settings you're going to use it on. And what I mean by this, because I know it gets a little bit confusing, so if the volume of my kitchen is 30 meters cubed, if I was going to use it on a normal rate, so just on the low setting, then you'd be looking about 6 times that to make sure that it will extract enough air out. And so if I was looking at that, then I'll be looking at 180 meters cubed. And then at the other end of the scale, what you want to do is to make sure that if you're using it on the intense, so on the maximum setting, that you're looking at around between 10 and 12 times that figure per hour. So any of these figures are per hour that I'm talking about. So if I've got a 30 meter cubed room, then 12 times that, you're looking at 360 meters cubed. So all of the, 360 meters cubed per hour that the cooker hood can extract. Now, all of these figures should be available either in the brochure or on the manufacturer's websites, because that's a really, really important figure to have a look at. I know when we did our kitchen recently, the cooker hood we were looking at going for wasn't quite powerful enough, and we went for one that was more powerful really than we need. But I'm so happy that we did that, because whenever we're cooking and if we've got something really going for it, then all of the air and all of the steam just goes straight outside. I hope I tried to explain that well. It's quite difficult to explain, but number 4 is a lot easier to explain, and that's the type of lighting to go for. Majority of cooker hoods now will have some kind of lights underneath. It's something I always try and recommend, to have a look at the type of lighting. Again, majority have got LED lighting, which is a much better type of light compared to the standard bulbs. Number 5, something that, although it's quite simple, it's something I always talk about, one of the early stages of looking at cooker hoods, and that's the noise level. What you want to do is to make sure when you're using the cooker hood, it's not too noisy. I've had it from personal experience. When I moved into my first property, I did buy a cooker hood, and I'll be honest, I didn't look at how noisy it was. When you've got it on a medium and high setting, it was horrible. It was way too noisy. So just have a look at the noise level, and these are normally in decibels. Again, have a look in the manufacturer's instructions or even on the website, because it will give you the different decibel ratings for different extraction rates. So if you've got the low, medium and high settings, you will find, I suppose, really depending on where it is, if you're just in a kitchen, if you're on your own, then it's not quite as important. If you've got, say, an open plan kitchen, especially if you've got a dining area within the kitchen, and if you're cooking at the same time that you've got guests there, then that's something that is really, really important. Number 6, again, goes into 2 kind of areas. First of all, it's the extraction type, whether you wanted it venting or to recirculate. What I mean by this is a venting cooker hood will have a vent hose or a vent pipe going above it, and then it goes straight outside. A recirculating one, as it says, it will just recirculate the air and then send it back into the room. If you've got the option, we would always recommend to have a venting type where it just goes straight outside. You'll find the extraction rates, everything about it will be a lot better. On the whole, they are quieter if you can just extract the air outside. You'll also find the extraction rates, when you look at those kind of figures that I was talking about earlier, they will normally be a lot better as well. Also, you'll find if you're cooking something that's a bit spicy or a bit smelly, then if you can get it outside, that's always a lot more effective. And what you'll find is that the type of hose that you use, you've got different sizes. So ideally you want at least 120mm or 150mm ideally. Most DIY shops will sell these hoses because they don't normally come with the cookers themselves. But make sure you try and get it in one run. You can get long hoses, try not to have a join in the middle. I only know that from personal experience, because when I'd actually installed it, it was slightly shorter than I needed, and it popped out, so I needed to take the floorboards out above it, which was a little bit of a pain, but I just replaced it with one length of hose, so got it sorted in the end. The next thing to talk about are the type of filters. So depending on what type of extraction you're doing, so if you've got venting, then the filters in here normally only need to be the standard grease filters. You will find that if you're going to recirculate the air, then you need to have charcoal filters in it as well. Now, most brands will sell these, so you've got different types of filters. I'll just show you in this Neff one. So these are the type of filters, so these are quite easy to take out and to wash. You will also find that some of them are to be replaced. You will find some manufacturers will have more like sheets of them where you just cut it to size and then fit it in. Those ones are okay, but again, just make sure you keep them clean and well maintained. Number 7 on the list, does the cooker hood have things like Google Assistant or Alexa built into it? Some cooker hoods have the ability that you can talk to it and get it turned off, turn on. Some of them have an app associated with it, so you can control it from the app. Now, I know some people are thinking, well, why do I need that kind of technology? It's just a cooker hood. But don't forget, if it's just sat in front of you right here, where you've got the buttons, that's okay. If you've got one of the ceiling mounted hoods, clearly you're not going to stand on the worktop to go and turn it off. So if you've got a separate remote control or even an app control on your phone, then that could be something to look at. That tends to lead quite nicely into number 8, and that's called hob-to-hood technology. And what these will do is the hob and the hood will actually talk to each other. So depending on what you're actually cooking on the hob, it will change the extraction rate for the hood. Now this is something that is not really on some of the basic type of hoods. It's mainly on the medium and especially the higher end type. But that can be really good because there's nothing worse when you're cooking something and then you find that the steam is coming around the side because you've not turned it up enough. This is really where the two will talk to each other. Number 9, does the hood have an auto timer? What some hoods will do is they will actually turn off automatically once you've finished cooking. So what it will do is it will actually detect when the steam has gone, when you've stopped your cooking, and then after a couple of minutes, normally after say 5-10 minutes after it's finished, it will turn off on its own. Number 10, and I suppose for some people it's quite an important thing, is the price of the cooker hood. Some of the technologies I've talked about, especially some of the higher end stuff, will be on the higher end cooker hoods where you can pay several £1000s for. There's a lot of different models available on the market. If you're just after a really basic cooker hood, then you could probably get something for about £40 or £50. But what you'll find is that on some of those cooker hoods, they could be quite noisy. Also, the extraction rate of the hood might not be that good. So you could find that when you're cooking, you've got steam going around the side of the hood, which normally means that the extraction rate isn't as good for the volume of the kitchen. There's quite a lot of things to think about, and I suppose what I've done is I've hopefully covered, I suppose, 10 of the main things to consider before buying a cooker hood. I hope you enjoyed this video on the 10 things to consider before buying a cooker hood. I know there's a lot of things to think about. I hope I've covered the majority of things. If I have missed something, then all I'd normally say is just pop it in the comments below. What I would normally say in my videos is please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just give us a quick thumbs up, click subscribe and leave any comments below. I'd always ask for comments, whether it's good or bad, about the video. Again, if I have missed something, just pop it in the comments. If you have got any questions on cooker hoods, then we have got quite a few on display, or we've got access to quite a bit of information as well. Just pop it in the comments. Also, if you have bought a cooker hood, and if you're either really happy with it or if you're not happy with it, then let me know what you think about it, because I'd always appreciate the feedback. Thanks for watching.